Disclaimer, Homestuck and flashing lights might as well be synonymous with each other. If you're epileptic or have problems with flashing lights or seizures, don't watch this video. Or any Homestuck media for that matter. What are you doing here, dude? You're gonna hurt yourself. Oh, hey, whoa. I'm not telling you to leave. You can watch the video in the background still. Like, I appreciate your views and input, just saying. Okay, that video did incredibly well. This was incredibly unexpected. I genuinely was not thinking that this would even reach anywhere close to that amount of viewership. We reached over 100,000 views in 4 days. This is legitimately insane. For a lot of other YouTubers, this would basically be chump change, but for someone like me who only has around 3,000 subscribers, this is crazy numbers. This is a milestone for the new age of the channel, and I got over 100,000 views one other time, but we don't talk about my old videos. Either way, I spent a whole lot of time reading comments, probably more time than I should have, and I came to a pretty general consensus that a lot of people wanted to see more Homestuck content, which of course I was planning on doing eventually, but I was not expecting this to gain this much viewership, and I was not expecting as many comments as there were to genuinely want me to talk about Homestuck more, and I kinda realized why. With the announcement of the new show, not only has the existing Homestuck fanbase kinda resurfaced, but, people also are trying to get into Homestuck in order to get more in tune with the show. So I decided that I'm going to take my opportunity. I'm going to use the power of my shitty Blue Yeti Mini and my ultimate strength, the exaggerated swagger of a black tea. I decided I'm essentially just going to make like a little beginner's guide for Homestuck, leading through certain lore aspects for people who just want to know the lore, and for this video and certain others, more specifically certain aspects of the world building. This can also be used for stuff like TTRPGs or fan comics. Homestuck does have its fair share of fan comics like Vast Error and Vast Error, so I generally hope for these videos to become a good one-stop shop for anybody who's getting into Homestuck and doesn't exactly know where to start. So first thing, I'm going to end up giving you like my 2 main options that I go for when it comes to trying to consume Homestuck. As it stands right now, the official Homestuck website is basically completely worthless. Because it was so heavily reliant on Flash, when it shut down, there was no real way that it could easily port all of the animations and games over in a way that would still make it consumable. So if you're trying to start reading Homestuck, do not go to the official Homestuck website. You're not going to get anything out of it. If you want the full, unadulterated Homestuck experience with all the games, Flash animations, and all the images, you want to go to the unofficial Homestuck collection. You're going to need a computer of some kind to do it this way, but basically it's going to download what's essentially just like an entire web browser dedicated exclusively to Homestuck. It has all the scenes, games, and Flash animations that you can watch. There's also no censorship, so if you find the early 2000s language of the early 2000s to be very charming like me, then you can just, absorb the project exactly how it was intended initially. If not, there's always the Homestuck slur replacement project, which basically takes stuff like the R word out of the Homestuck story, and you can read it that way without ever knowing what parts were changed. It's essentially an add-on for the unofficial Homestuck collection, and I don't have it downloaded, so you'd have to see exactly how it works, but basically if that's what you'd prefer, then there's always that option for you. When you install the unofficial Homestuck collection, it's going to put you on new reader mode, which basically is going to start you at the very beginning of Homestuck and track your progress. It's basically an anti-spoiler measure to make sure the new readers don't end up accidentally consuming spoilers, but if you're an old Homestuck reader and just trying to pick it up after, a long time of not reading it, you can turn off new reader mode in the options. When you do, you regain access to all the other parts, and you're able to skip through them to your own leisure. However, if you don't particularly feel like reading all the massive walls of text that comprises like 90% of Homestuck's dialogue, you can watch the Let's Read Homestuck series by VoiceOver Nexus. Sorry if I sound a little weird for a second. Allergic reaction, don't worry about it. It contains a lot of very fun and talented voice actors, and it's going to end up shaping how you imagine these Homestuck characters sounding for like the rest of your life. It's far more consumable and contains great moments of character acting you wouldn't have otherwise found at any other point in the regular Homestuck comic. For what was essentially just a crew of amateur voice actors, this was incredible. So if you want to read Homestuck, I suggest doing it through one of those 2 avenues. Well, it's kind of required if you want to start reading Homestuck, but whatever. Let's get to the actual topic of the video, that topic being SBURB. Homestuck is about several groups of kids who manage to fuck up a game of chess so bad the entire multiverse is at stake. This game of chess is called SBURB or Scrub depending on the planet that it's on, and it's not just a game but a greater conduit for an ultimate universal purpose. It's a multiplayer game that requires at minimum 2 players to complete. The players are selected from one planet with intelligent life, with all of the players being predestined to play the game. These players from creation are assigned to a specific aspect and class which will represent the entire experience they have playing the game from here on out.
Wowee, striking. Several teenagers getting pulled into a video game. That sounds a lot like Sword Art Online.
Well, nasally straw man I made up in my head. It's different from Sword Art Online because they're not really getting trapped inside of a game, more like, the game is acting as a conduit for their exploration of their universe. Every planet and living being that exists as a necessity for the game to continue is very much real and very much in the real world, and they always were. The game basically progresses their interaction to get to its ultimate goal. Before playing the game, you also require Seledex, which is basically a little inventory system that existed in real life prior to the game's release. Just seems to be a general thing that everyone in the Homestuckverse has at a certain point. The game exists in several sort of stages across its runtime for all players, so we're going to go through all of those and just get a general idea of how the game functions and its ultimate goal. Also couldn't find a way to sneak this in naturally, but if you're curious about the game I'm playing in the background, it's called the Genesis Project. It's basically like a, SBURB simulator. It's free and facing a massive update drought, so maybe if more people get into it, they might update the game eventually. Please, I'm begging. I want to actually be able to complete this game. Alright, let's begin. The setup stage is simple and doesn't even really require much input. To put it simply, all SBURB players must have received both their client and their server disks. Then the players are going to decide on what order they're going to enter the game in. One player will act as a server player for a client. Then the client is going to have to act as a server player for whoever's next in the loop, and this continues all the way back until the first server player gets to be the client, at which point they'll all be in and get to continue the game. Now let's say the first 2 players have decided the order, and now the first server and the first client are connected. What now? Well, while the client is basically playing an RPG, the server is playing Sims with the client's house. They can extend and add rooms, place items, move around furniture, etc., and the server is given several items of which to place in the client's house. This is called the Fernalia Registry, and it contains mainly 5 items that are going to be useful at the moment. This is the Alchemeter, the Cruxtruder, the Totem Lathe, the Punch Designix, and a pre-punched card. This card is a Krugzite artifact and what is going to need to be created to proceed to the next part of the game. To get into the medium, they're going to need to create this Krugzite artifact using the materials and tools that are provided from the game's Fernalia Registry. This essentially serves as a tutorial for alchemy, which is going to be necessary in order to create better weapons to kill enemies in the game, as well as just creating generally useful tools. So let's go step by step using each of the laid down Fernalia Registry machines in order. The first thing a player is going to have to do is go to the Cruxtruder. This is the most important machine during the first part of the game and the second most important machine throughout the rest. They must open the top of the Cruxtruder, at which point they will be given a Krugzite dowel and a kernel sprite will emerge. Right now it's a bit useless, but over time it'll become probably one of the most important NPCs throughout the entirety of the SBURB game. Heavy emphasis on probably. Cruxtruder also starts a countdown, and when it reaches 0, that means the absolute annihilation of you and your entire neighborhood. The timer varies depending on your artifact, so either you'll have a very short amount of time to complete this, or you'll have a very long time. Though in most cases you usually only have a couple minutes. Now with your new sprite and a Krugzite dowel, you're going to need to go and get that pre-punched card. Now when you have both the card and the dowel, you're going to need to take it to the Totem Lathe. You put the card into the lathe, it scans the information from the card and proceeds to carve that onto the dowel. Now instead of a dowel, you have a Krugzite totem, and when you take that to the Alchemeter to alchemize it, it's going to alchemize exactly what was on the card. While you're walking around your house trying to find where your friend managed to put all these stupid ass machines at, your kernel sprite prototypes.
Wow, striking. These multiple gunshot wounds are incredibly painful, but I'm more curious about what prototyping a sprite means.
Well, nasally straw man that I made up in my head. Prototyping is what happens when a kernel sprite interacts and combines with a living, non-living, or dead object. They'll take on the physical characteristics, personality, and general abilities of that thing that they fused with. When something dead is thrown in, it'll actually revive that person as a sprite now. This isn't just some sprite approximation of what the person was like when they were alive, this is actually a full-on revival, considering that Jade actually fused back with Jade Sprite when becoming a god tier. Whatever is thrown in can also talk now, and this gives players an opportunity to reconcile with dead family members, pets, etc. Or just get to formally meet ones they haven't actually met yet, like John with his grandmother. You can proto-sprite... Fuck. You can prototype a sprite up to 2 times, and on certain occasions can prototype a sprite with another sprite, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, it's essentially still in its unhatched form, and it's just having the face of whatever you've thrown in it, just floating around for a while. You have your newly lathed totem, and it's now ready to be alchemized, so you walk it over to the alchemeter. You put it in the thing, it makes a thing, and now you have your task. Each of these artifacts is in some way directly related to how this character's role in the story will be played. Each player has a class and aspect, and each task is going to be directly related to these in some form, even if not directly and they don't really know it yet. John is the heir of breath. It's mainly interpreted as he who inherits or is served by their aspect. He had no task to do. He simply had to stand there, hold his arms out, and wait for the apple to fall into his hand. Dave is the knight of time. As such, his task was one of patience. He simply had to sit around and do nothing for several hours while he waited for an egg to hatch. Considering that a true understanding of time is a necessity for being a time player, this was absolutely a task that Dave needed to do. Jade is the witch of space, and as such, her task was to hit a constantly moving piñata. It wasn't just a test of her trust, but also a test of her overall spatial awareness, which obviously, as a space player, would be a necessity for moving forward. Rose is the seer of light, and her task is to break a wine bottle. Rose's mother, Roxy, who's the rogue of void, has an alcohol problem. The void aspect is about nothingness and muddling information, while the light aspect is about knowledge and clarity. As such, alcohol, which is something that induces states of incoherence, is directly related to void and an antithesis to the light aspect. This act is Rose destroying blissful ignorance in exchange for enlightenment, which is directly related to her class and aspect. Once you've completed this, you've officially left the first stage and have begun the second stage, the medium. When you enter the medium, your entire property is teleported to a large black void on a massive pillar of just straight rock or whatever, I guess. It's just like it basically just like takes the entire earth under whatever property you have, and you just get sent into the fucking dark world. You go outside to look, and there are several portals above your house, so you currently have no way to reach to. Your server player is entirely out of Gris, which is basically, like the building and alchemy currency for this game, and there's not really any way that you can get up there. Your sprite has evolved from a kernel to a full-fledged sprite, which is, now humanoid, has a nice long ghostly tail, and can actually talk to you now. Sometime. This guy is your guide for the rest of your game, giving you advice in the most cryptic way possible that you basically might as well just ignore. The sprite has oodles and oodles of knowledge on the game, but unless what you prototyped it with is willing to tell you all of it, you're basically going to be walking in the dark for a while, at least until you figure out the cryptic shit it's trying to say. Other than that, while you try to figure out exactly how you're supposed to get up to the giant portals, you remember that this is supposed to be an RPG. You find several sharp-toothed small humanoid creatures rummaging around your house, and some of them look a little bit odd. Look a bit like your sprite, actually. These are imps, one of the several menial enemy types that are found around the game. They're generally pretty annoying and mischievous, and aren't really that big of a threat in a fight, as basically any normal weapon can kill them. They're also kind of little pushovers, as you can kind of just tell them to leave your house and they will. But unfortunately, their soft, succulent bodies drop Gris, so you're gonna have to kill them. Imps are only one of the many kinds of underlings you could find in SBURB, like liches, basilisks, gyclopses, and ogres. And one trait they all share is that usually they'll contain some of the features of a prototype sprite. And if multiple players are in the game with prototype sprites, then they're going to take on a certain amalgamation of those traits. Prototype a jester, they're all going to be rocking a little jester fit. Prototype a dead bird that you killed with a sword, they're going to have wings and a sword in their chest they can use to fight now, which they usually won't do, but still they have the option. Prototype your omnipotent god dog, well guess what, now they're incredibly hard to kill and can teleport around. This is going to be a problem later, isn't it? So yes, while you can make your sprite stronger through prototyping, it'll also make the enemies you have to fight stronger. So much so it could turn a basic menial enemy into what's essentially a mini-boss. Enough of that, this is basically the murderized shit phase of the game, where you go around killing a bunch of menial enemies around your house that'll spawn in randomly, with whatever weapon of choice you chose. So do you guys remember the Fernalia registry from a couple of minutes ago? I mentioned one machine that wasn't useful in the initiation process into the medium. That was the punch Designix, and it's only going to become useful around now. As the name implies, it allows you to punch cards from your inventory similar to the pre-punched card that you were using before. Now you can put whatever information was on the card into the totem lathe and either clone the item, or punch another item and combine them into one. Using this, the totem lathe, the alchemeter, and the grist you've grinded, you can create brand new weapons which allow you to kill imps more efficiently. efficiently. And also the occasional ogre that spawns in, those guys are incredibly tough, so you're definitely not going to be able to kill them with any basic regular weapon. As you gain grist, it's on your server player to start building up your house, or at least trying to make some sort of ultimate really cool staircase to get you all the way up to the portal above your home. Without the server player doing their job, you're basically Homestuck. Also, when you fall asleep after entering the game, you're going to take over what's called a dream self. They're an avatar for the sleeping player. They can fly around, do all types of shenanigans, and talk to Dursites and Prospidians. Remember when I mentioned that SBURB is a game of chess? Well, these are the little chess piece guys. They're waging a war with each other over the planet Skya, which is essentially going to be the main mission of SBURB as a game in general. Prospit wants to protect Skya, while Durs wants to destroy it. To complete the game, the players are going to want to ally on the side of Prospit, as the destruction of Skya would mean the game is completely unbeatable. As your dream self, you have direct access to the Prospidians, Dursites, and any other carapacian that's on the planet. Thus, you can ask for information, gain plans, etc., which may help you ultimately win the game. Your dream self is also useful as a second life, because if you die, then you can have another player kiss you and it'll revive you with the power of your dream self. It'll basically sacrifice your dream self and give you another life. Anyway, back to the medium. You've killed enough enemies and you got you some sick gear, and your server player has managed to build up a massive staircase with like a little, revolving thing all the way up to the first portal. You go through it and you finally move on to stage 3. Each player is given their own planet, which is synced up to their class and aspect that they'll be spending the vast majority of the SBURB game on. These planets are populated by either reptilian or amphibious figures that are called consorts. They're basically the NPCs you'll be taking quests from, talking to, and buying things from. From here on out, your goal is to kill enemies, level up, talk to consorts, learn the lore of your land, and eventually, you will learn of your personal quest, which is essentially a quest that you must do in order to help your planet in some way. These quests don't provide XP or great boons, but they are a quest that's going to help your personal development as a hero and as a person. These quests can be relatively simple on their face, for example, like John on the Land of Wind and Shade having to clear out these giant clouds that were covering up the fireflies so they could leave and be free on their own. Or they could be needlessly complex and convoluted, like Dave's quest, which is not only his own quest but also tied to another player, which means that if she fucks up, he can't complete his quest. It's a whole thing. There's one thing consistent between all of these personal quests, and it's that the ultimate goal is a problem caused by a denizen. Denizens are giant faceless worm creatures named after Greek people. They're basically intended to be the final bosses on each planet, and they also hoard a massive fuck ton of grist. When you find and confront your denizen, you have two choices. You can either fight them and take the grist that they have, or you can listen to their choice. Denizens sometimes may be willing to do what you want, but it has to be noted that they are bargainers. They're also usually a massive consequence too. For example, you can either murder all your friends, or you can listen to the voices in your head. What are they saying to you? Start digging in your butt, You fight, do quests, level up, gain grist, eventually get the next person in the loop to the medium, and eventually go through the other several portals that are above your house. You gain new powers and abilities that are, directly related to your class and aspect, and if you manage to find it, you can die on your quest pad and ascend to God tier. No, the name is no exaggeration, you are literally a deity. Anyway, I'm not even gonna bother with thinking about ectobiology, not even I understand this shit, but during the planet stage, there is one special task that individuals of the space aspect will have to do. It's an absolute necessity for beating the game, which is exactly why there needs to be exactly one space and one time player in any session. Space players have to breed frogs. Remember when I said that SBURB was actually just a conduit for an ultimate cosmic purpose? This is that cosmic purpose. Through ectobiology and selective cloning, a space player is required to try and make the perfect frog. I really don't even understand the process of fucking frog breeding and paradox clone shit either, but if there's one thing that I do understand, it's basically that you're trying to create this ultimate frog that'll go on to become the Genesis frog. Through trial and error and weeding out undesirable genes, the creation of this frog is SBURB's end goal. Because SBURB isn't just a game about killing an evil king or queen. The game is actually the universe's life cycle, because the Genesis frog itself is literally an entire universe. The reason players are meant to side with Prospit is not just because of some good versus evil shtick, it's because if Durs manages to destroy Skya, there will be no planet that can cultivate a Genesis frog, and thus by the end of the game, the players will not get their new universe to live in and rule over, which is SBURB's ultimate reward. Failing to do this creates a null session in which the players just kind of have to exist now, left to live out the rest of their days having played a game with no reward. So to put it simply, space players are absolutely essential, and this is just You know, you have to do this shit in order to win the game. You'll also usually need the fuck tons of grist you get from the denizens to win the game as well. Either way, now that you've done your quests, leveled up, and maybe even ascended to God tier, your server has managed to build you through each and every portal at the top of your house until there is finally one portal left. This last portal is to the battlefield on Skya, where you and your friends will finally face the final bosses of the entire game and hopefully create your new universe. Prospit can't win. Prospit is always 100% fated to lose the battle against Durst. The Black King and Queen are always fated to seize the White King's scepter, and at some point during the late game of SBURB, the Black King is going to use both his and the White King's scepter to begin the reckoning. The Black King will use both scepters to rain meteors down across the entire field of Skya. Skya will defend itself, summoning gates and portals in order to teleport the meteors away. However, it can only hold this up for 24 hours. With that, the players have one day to kill both the Black King and Queen and save Skya from its ultimate destruction. And this is far from an easy fight, considering you have to beat not only the King and Queen, but also the entirety of their forces. And you want to know the worst part? Imps and other menial enemies are not the only things that mutate as a result of a kernel sprite prototyping. The Black King and Queen have a scepter and ring respectively that allows them to transform into a form that has the powers and characteristics of all the prototype sprites. Black Queen is the easier of the two, and it is possible to deal with her before she becomes a problem later on the Skya battlefield, but unlike the Queen, the King's scepter not only changes his appearance and physical capabilities, but it also changes his size massively, which depending on what you prototype can make him a towering entity that's damn near impossible to defeat. As seen with the trolls, who had a prototype over 12 things to get all players in the game, and they ended up with an absolute monstrosity that needed an entire fucking heaping load of strength just to be able to kill. And if you finally manage to defeat the game's final boss, the Genesis Frog is shipped over to Skya, where it can begin to cultivate and eventually grow into a new universe. Then they're offered a door. Going in will send them inside the frog to their brand new universe where they can do whatever they please. All of creation inside is entirely up to them. They can continue on with their lives reaping the benefits of what they created. And the process will eventually continue, with a new group of SBURB players eventually going on to create their own universe. The cycle of this simple story will repeat forevermore. This is how a normal game SBURB is supposed to be played. But as you read Homestuck, you'll come to realize that nothing ever goes right at all. You have to remember, SBURB isn't about kids getting sucked into a video game. The video game is still the universe that it's taking place in, which means that any myriad of things can absolutely fuck up a game of SBURB that are entirely from outside sources. The NPCs are also actually autonomous beings, and thus they can make odd decisions that can change the entire course of the story without ever having anything to do with the player's input. Some random menial agent of Durst could get the Black Queen's ring and transform into a bipedal winged god dog that goes around murdering universes and killing people at random for no reason. You can lick a random piece of candy and essentially become what's a fucking trickster demigod that can infect other people, fly across entire planets, and just manifest shit into existence, and also be weirdly obsessed with making babies for some reason. A winner of a dead session who's essentially an ultimate time demon who gets summoned at the death of the fucking universe can come back at any point in time and decide to fuck shit up across the entire multiverse for no reason. There's not a single SBURB game in Homestuck that actually goes as intended. The entire thing manages to get fucked up in some way or another, which is why I think Homestuck is honestly one of the most interesting stories about a real-life video game sort of thing, because instead of being rigid to game logic, literally anything can happen, and also still have the game remain relevant in some way, shape, or form. And believe me, this was heavily abridged. There's a whole heaping lot more to SBURB and its events and how players are decided, etc., but I kind of had to abridge this, you know, because I don't want to be here for 10 hours. I know people may like hour-long videos, but like I genuinely can't record that long. I really wish I could. Anyway, I feel like that's a good enough explanation of SBURB. That should probably do for like another week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, like, subscribe, and go play the Genesis project. It's a good game. Next video I have something interesting planned that has absolutely nothing to do with Homestuck. As a matter of fact, it actually involves another certain webcomic. And we'll be power scaling the main character from that webcomic. Oh god, what am I doing with my life?
grave issue. I don't have a dad. My dad is not in my house. He does not exist. And he's not around.
Mountain Dew.
Don't jump
By
off.
the way,
Please
I
do
hope
not
you don't
jump
mind, but
off.
I'm about to fuck your room up.
My room?
Just a little bit though.
What the fuck do I do with a kernel sprite?
Where the fuck did he go? Oh my god. Alright, basically, walk around your house first, and if... Oh shit, those are my stairs. Try to find something that looks like somewhat relatively kind of a little bit alive. Your kernel sprite will go to it if it's like a plushie or a poster or something.
It's
Talk
in your room.
faster,
It's in your
nigga,
room.
He's on a timer.
Like, bro,
It's
I'm
in
on
your
like
room.
1 minute. It's
Nigga,
fucking
under the
indecisive piece
floor.
of shit.
Nigga, I can't. It's like in like one of the rooms. It's a fucking orange disc. I couldn't drop it right because the game bugged. All right, you go outside. You put it in you put it in the fucking lathe. Wrong thing.
What?
Wrong thing. Wrong
Which
thing.
one?
You grab the
Huh?
thing. You the thing. All right, the thing. You see the origami shit. The next thing, the thing next to the origami shit on the top right. Wrong thing, not that thing.
Oh my
What?
god, you're so fucking bad at this.
You see the thing with the drill up? Not that one. Oh my god.
You could have said with a fucking drill, dumbass.
But I get it if we were all newbies, nigga. You played this shit before.
Me?
I explained 90% of the shit he had to do.
Let me go build up, I guess. Do I have to build up from Striking's roof?
My roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, preferably.
I just
Oh my
actually
God, these guys are packed up waiting to jump me, bro. I don't like this.
just watched the downfall of Javier in record time. Why are you swindling angels, Javier?
Nigga, what took my... Did you check my front door, Striking?
Maybe.
You
I was
fucking...
waiting- I was waiting until you noticed.
Alright, I
You
did the
fucking
thing,
insolent
Strike.
mongrel. I swear to God. I can't fucking go into my house
I
and
would like
make
to
shit.
get up there.
Well, anyways,
Striking,
how
give me
about
my
that?
fucking front door back.
Let me finish killing this guy first. Damn.
Nigga, I'm gonna
And
put this
maybe
plate
I'll
away, and
consider
if I don't...
giving you your door back.
So, like,
If I
when
don't
first-
come back and I don't see my front door, I'm making porn of your character.
Why? You don't got the art skills for that, twin?